Welcome to another edition of Interruptions. We have a special treat for you guys today. We have a special guest. We have actor, producer, writer. He's a legend in the game. He's also a treasure to us. Welcome, Mr. Bill Dukes. How you doing?
God bless you, brother. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to get you on. Show just positivity. We named the show Interruption because we just want to kind of interrupt the normal thought process of what people think. Like today, speaking to you regarding the film industry, and just kind of interrupt the thought process of what people think it is and what it isn't. Looking at your catalog is so huge. Your catalog is so huge. You've done so much. My first question I wanted to ask you is, what made you get into the film industry? You know, when you're trying to find your voice as a young man, as a young person in this world, what made you choose entertainment and film?
It's a good question. You know, during the time I grew up, it was a time of segregation, etc.
Right.
And my parents had a second and third grade education. They made sure that my sister and I got a college education. So I went to Dutchess Community College in Poughkeepsie, New York, where I was born, and studying English. And I had a speech and drama teacher named Constance Kuhn.
Okay.
And one of the things you had to do before the end of the year was you had to be in a play. So she put me in The Emperor Jones by Eugene O'Neill.
Okay.
And she had me star in the play. And I never acted in my life before, but that experience, you know how you feel something sometimes that you're connected to?
Sure.
But my parents thought that that was the most impractical thing in the world. Being an actor, the only person out there those days was Sidney Poitier, really.
Correct.
And Harry Belafonte. So they say, well, you know, you always write in your journal. So because I was tall and dark and not very, how can I say, sociable. So I wrote a journal with poems and ideas.
Okay.
And they said, well, you be an English teacher because English teachers make money. So I went to Boston University. I'd fallen asleep for the third time in one of my classes and got kicked out.
Wow.
And so my buddy, Israel Hicks, great director and writer and actor, said, Bill, you're always talking about acting because if you found something, you should go up to the drama department. A guy named Lloyd Richards is there.
Mm-hmm.
He's head of the drama department, a black man. You should go and audition. I said, I'll never get in. I went up, I got in. And I'm glad there was no such thing in those days as social media, because the next semester, I was dancing across the ballet floor in tights.
Oh, I get it.
It's not something you really want to see it, you know what I mean? So, and then I followed Lloyd to NYU School of the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
Then he made me his assistant to come out here to Hollywood. And I was going to go back, and he says, no, don't go back. There's something here for you. Stay, I believe in you.
Okay.
And so I did. And my buddy, Michael Schultz, came out here, and he was directing a film with Ivan Dixon called Car Wash. And so I auditioned for that. I got in, and that's where things started.
Wow. I remember growing up watching Car Wash, you know, in the 70s. Brilliant film. You were a brilliant actor in that. The way you had to convey your feelings near the end with your character was so emotionally traumatized. And as an actor, I'm sure that's an underrated skill that people don't know, that sometimes the emotional aspect of your character that you have to try to convey to come across the screen. And you did a brilliant and wonderful job in doing that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
What my next question is, how was it? Because when I look, like I said, your catalog is so huge. But when I went and did some more research, I saw that you directed some episodes on Knox Landing, Falcon Crest. And as a young kid, see, I was sitting there watching those shows with my mother. So, Falcon Crest, Knox Landing, Dallas, all those shows at that time. How did it feel to work on those shows as a director? Because like you said, when you got started, even in the early 80s coming in, there weren't a lot of us that you saw not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera. So what was that experience like?
Most of it was very positive and very good, but let me give you an understanding of the times.
Sure.
My first directing experience on Dallas. I was the first Black director on Dallas.
Okay.
And so that was the hit show of the time. That was a big show.
Yes.
So I was so happy to get that job. And so I rolled up to the security guard and rolled down my window. He looked in the window and he said, "Who are you delivering for?"
Wow.
I said, "What did you say?" He said, "Who are you delivering for?" Now, as I've told this story many times, I wanted to say to him, "I'm about to deliver a can of whip ass to you."
Okay.
But I didn't say that because I would have been the angry Black man, and never would have worked again.
Right.
And so instead of saying that, I said to him, "I'm delivering my talents as the first Black director on Dallas. Would you please open the gate?"
Wow.
The most rewarding thing was the look on his face. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, because that comment that you just made, that statement you made to him, I hope everyone pays attention to, because sometimes we have to learn how to play chess and not checkers. Because
playing checkers in a chess game, you can't do that.
Right, because like you stated, if you would have said a can of whoop ass, that would have been playing checkers. And like you said,
that's right.
That wouldn't have led to you directing, like you said, being the angry Black man. And so you phrased it differently. And that is a lesson to us all that sometimes, yes, you're angry as far as racism coming at you, but sometimes also it's how you handle and deal with it.
Well, I think it's appropriate to apply it to now because, I'm very angry about the killings of our young Black men.
Yes.
I'm very, very upset about that. And I think Black Lives Matter is very important. But here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
After the anger, after the protesting, what's going to change? And all the protests are great. They're global.
Right.
But what's going to be put in place to assure the fact that more Black boys don't get killed? Because all cops are not bad people. I have friends that are police officers that are good people.
Yes. Myself.
Pardon me?
I said myself as well.
Yes. So this is not, an issue of all cops are bad, because they're not. The question is, how do we create an infrastructure that deals with the cops that do bad things, so they aren't just moved to different places? And how do we deal with them in terms of consequences for their behavior, the bad ones? So that's what I'm looking for, to see if there's going to be some kind of infrastructure that's built to say, okay, no. Not dismantling all of the police forces. That I don't think is right. How do you restructure things so that the bad apples get punished?
Let me ask you a quick question, and this is kind of awful question I wanted to ask, but you kind of went down a path I wanted to ask you about. How do we, like you said, try to put policies in to, to change systemic, racism? But a lot of times when you go to the polls to vote, right, far as your local, sometimes we don't know who is who. you know, because, you know, the president, that's easy. You can, or the governor, that's easy. Um, but a lot of times, you know, when you're dealing like with city council or senators or different people who are running, how do we get involved to a place that we know who's running from the outset versus trying to go in and vote and we don't even know who's running, their background, what they stand for?
That's a very, very, very insightful, brilliantly important question, because we're looking at the presidency. The local officials run our lives.
Correct.
They run our lives. And to not do the research, and the research is available online. If you go to the polling place early, they have write-ups about those people.
Okay.
I mean, it's our obligation, duty, and responsibility to know who we're voting for.
Correct.
Because they're making local laws and procedures and creating all kinds of things that impact the lives of us and our children on a daily basis.
I'm glad you put that out there for our listeners. So going forward, they would know, everyone would know we need to start researching and not just waiting to, you know, whoever's running for the president or running for the governor or running, you know, things that seem so big and global. We need to learn who's the city council, who's the judges and things of that nature. So we can actually, because what I found out through this process, just like you stated, is that really you can't make the change from the top down. You got to make the changes from local and work your way up. And so long we've been thinking we're making changes top down, and it's the reverse.
Playing checkers in the chess game, brother.
Once again, you're right. You're right. You're right.
I think Malcolm X said it best too. He said, no matter how good a football player you are,
Mm-hmm.
if the name of the game is baseball, you better get yourself a bat.
Wow.
And he said, your competition is gonna tell you, you're a good little football player. Look how he passed. See how he passed? See how he caught that football? And then running around the bases.
Because you're not in ownership. And I'm glad you stated that, because this, and I'm glad we're having this dialogue, because I don't have to try to follow a blueprint of my questions. You're doing a great job actually leading into some of my questions. So that's great. We're saying that, do you believe, and it's kind of a rhetorical question, but if you answer it, do you believe that we need more Tyler Perry's, we need more Spike Lee's, we need more John Singleton's, guys that will create content, versatile content, not all the same type of content, but versatile content to give diversity, but also for actors, you know, actresses that are, you know, African American. Do you believe more people need to seek out in the film industry of being those guys like yourself versus just trying to be in front of the camera?
I agree. I think 1,000%, you know. I think it's important to have our voices heard from our point of view,
Mm-hmm.
from our perspective. I'm not suggesting other people's points of view are not relevant, but so are ours. And as a writer or a director or producers, we have the ability, and we're still going to have, you know, discussions and struggles, but we have the ability to have content that really has our voice. And I think it's important for us to understand that because we're talking about our children's future, you know, how we are perceived, you know, our children perceive themselves through that.
Right.
And I think we have an obligation to give a more accurate description of who we are. And we can do that through media. And it used to be just the studios and networks.
Mm-hmm.
No, now it's Hulu, Netflix, Crackle. I mean, look at Issa Rae. She started her own,
Yes.
little webisodes about relevant topics.
Yes.
It got a lot of eyeballs, right?
Yep.
Now she got a big deal with HBO. So the people who really, really get it are not waiting any longer. They're not waiting to be discovered, they're discovering themselves.
Let me along that lines. Let me ask you a question. When we create our own content, like you said, say starting like myself with a podcast show, like like you just mentioned, do you think we need to just keep ownership and put the content out, because like you said, it's so many platforms to to put the content out, versus sometimes getting a big check from a studio, because sometimes with that check there comes something along with it that wants to take away that ownership?
Well, that's a great question. It's a matter of balance.
Okay.
If you're in a position where you have 3 kids and you have to feed them,
Gotcha.
you got to pay for their,
Gotcha.
you got to make some tough decisions.
Right. You're
because,
right.
Because your integrity is important.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the question they ask: Daddy, where's the food?
And you gotta deliver the food. You can't just have an answer. You gotta deliver.
No. They don't want. They can't eat your answer.
Correct.
Want to know where's the food? And so, I think everybody in this industry, from time to time, has to make certain compromises.
Sure.
But you can leverage those compromises to your integrity, because you've made those dollars to feed your family for a year. You don't have to take everything that comes to you.
Okay.
Now, some people do that, and they're very popular, and etc. But some people are very strategic in terms of the choices they make, in terms of what they'll be involved in. But they have the privilege of doing that, and not everybody does.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you for. Because sometimes people get on their soapbox, or some people we say, hey, why don't they just do this and that? And I like the way you explain it. Sometimes life gets in the way. Like you said, if your father and a mother, you got to still put food on the table. And so you like you said, you have to balance it. And there's a way you can still keep your integrity, but at the same time, still, put food on the table, feed those kids.
A lot of people who are on soapboxes, they can be on the soapboxes because those soapboxes are made of pork chops and chitlins, and so they can eat.
Gotcha. Because it's cheaper.
Come on.
We're here.
I'm just saying.
No. I'm. Trust me. I understand exactly what you're saying. What is more? I would say taxing. Is it acting or directing?
Oh, you pay a price for both, my brother. It's like, acting's a very, very, very challenging discipline. I wish it wasn't called acting, because it's not. You're not pretending. You're not acting. You're being.
Okay.
And being, when I teach acting classes, I always tell my students, okay, you got the lines down, you got the blocking, right? And you know your lines, right? It's not about you saying the lines the way you think they should be said. It's about responding to the person and being there that's in the scene with you. And I say to them, it's like falling into darkness backward. You don't know where you're gonna land.
Gotcha.
You give up this, your ego, and you go into God's space and you become. And so that's acting. Directing wise, there's Directing is really two disciplines. One is the creative aspect. You collaborate with the writer and you come up with a script or a vision that you then have to interpret to sometimes 100 or more people.
Okay.
Because they have to be on board with the same vision, the actors, the staff, the crew, etc. And the second part of directing is management. And it's managing three things: time, people, and money. You can be the greatest creative person in the world,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can't manage time, people, and money, you ain't gonna work.
Wow. That's great to hear your take on that, as far as the two. What you're saying, directing also is a little bit more. Is it more involved, like you said, because you're dealing with the time and different people, different characters of the film, right? But also the different actors, and then with acting, you're being, but you're being in that space in whatever that particular scene is,
Right.
responding to the other actor or
Yes.
actress.
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain, and because I don't think a lot of people know, so I wanted your take on this. Could you explain what the differences are of being, because you have been a producer as well as an executive producer of a film. What's the difference with being just you produce this film versus you're the executive producer of this film?
Well, producers are more like line people. They're, more production driven.
Okay.
On the set, et cetera, da, 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
Executive producers do more than produce. They help shape the vision of the script. They help find the funding for the movie.
Okay.
And then they help finding distribution.
Okay.
It's a whole different set of responsibilities in addition to the creative process. So great executive producers have relationships with funders and distributors, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you cleared that up, because a lot of times, we look and we see the credits produced, or we see executive producer, and a lot of times we don't know what that credit is. What does it entail? So I'm glad that you were able to clear that up for everyone. I was intrigued. One of the documentaries you did, Black Girls.
Dark Girls, yes.
Dark Girls, excuse me. And of course, as you can see, both of us are dark skinned.
Right, that's right.
I just got a little light on me. That's all. A little sun. Put a little rust color on so you can see me.
I got you.
But I saw an interview that you did, and it touched my heart because I kind of went through the same thing as a kid. That racism that we have within our own culture, and it's twofold, because it's either, in the mid '80s, early '80s, light skin was in. If you was light skinned, it didn't matter what you looked like. The fact that you was light skinned, you were just in. And then dark skin, not so much. And I remember the time when I started seeing the Wesley Snipes, the Michael Jordans, and showing how Black is beautiful, far as a more dark, pigmentation, and you're not, being conscious of your own skin and dark skin. What made you want to do that docuseries on Black Girls?
Well, I did two, one called Light Girls and one called Dark Girls.
Okay.
And because I wanted to talk about how do we heal ourselves as a culture. There are a lot of things that destroy us externally and that are invasions of our survival and our growth. But there's a lot of things we do to each other.
Right.
That are some pretty deep things. And I saw what I went through, what my sister went through. She's dark too. But also have light-skinned female friends. They tell me what they go through. And I wanted to find a way. I call my documentaries edutainment. In other words, you can entertain, but at the same time, you can give something for people to think about. And if you go online right now and look under hashtag Team Lightskin, hashtag Team Darkskin.
Okay.
These are light-skinned and dark-skinned women, still in their own kind of separate spaces, talking about beauty, etc. But you got to come together, you know? And what I wanted to do is to really discuss it in a way that brought us together rather than continue to separate us.
And I think that's great because I think in one of the interviews I saw, you talked about that also. Sometimes we that are darker, you know, feel like that we have the rights of on, you know, being black, like really being down or whatever you want to call that thing, you know, of being black. And then someone that is light skinned, that's black but lighter, you know, you not so much, you have it a little bit. And so I like that because it talks about the complexity that racism and how we discriminate against each other in our own race. And how, like you said, we need to come together because we're all shapes, colors, sizes within the black community, and we're all beautiful. Doesn't matter dark, light, or whatever. We need to learn to just love ourselves. So when I saw you, Wesley Snipes, Michael Jordan, all that, coming through, once I got the mid '80s and got to my senior year in high school, I'm not gonna lie to you, you couldn't tell me I wasn't beautiful.
Beautiful. That's great. That's great.
Listen. I was more confident than the light-skinned guy.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, no, I mean, but that's a tribute to you and those others who stepped out and been an example, showing us what we can be. You know, and so sometimes, you know, you're doing it for the love of your craft, the love of what you do, but at the same time, there's someone looking at you and saying, "Hey, I can do this, or I can be that." And so, I want to salute you for you know, doing that for me. And,
well, God bless you for that, brother. Thank you.
And so I appreciate that. One of the other questions I wanted to ask you is, in your industry, in the film business and entertainment, what do you believe is for people that are aspiring to be in the film industry? What is the most misconception that you believe people think the film or entertainment industry is? What do you think is the most misconception?
Well, it's called show business.
Right.
And most people are focused on the show. And don't do anything to understand that it's a business.
Okay.
And what is the business? I mean, what is distribution? What is exhibition? What is marketing? What are all of the things that you need to know to not only survive, but thrive in the business? The business. And a lot of people are focused on the show part, how they look, which is important. You know, the da-da-da-da-da. But in this, it's like a roller coaster ride in this business. When the culture goes down, what do you do then? You know, it's like, and they think they're going to last forever. Right. There are a few exceptions to the rule, but you know, in the Screen Actors Guild, for example, I don't know I forgot the exact number, but I think that less than 20% work annually of the entire guild.
Wow.
Out of the 20% that work, I think it was, I forgot the number exactly, but only 30% or 40% make over $50,000 a year.
that's a low number.
And now there are the stars that make all this money and da 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 da, which is good. But the average person coming into this industry should do some research and understand that they have to think differently, because if they're waiting to be discovered, waiting and waiting like they have in the past, it's not a good idea. And there are people coming in and still spending $1,200 on pictures. And the thing is that if I'm a director,
Mm-hmm.
if I had a choice of seeing your picture, or you have filmed in your acting class some scenes with you and your fellow actor, and edited it so I can see your talent, you can do that with your cell phone.
Yes.
And so the thing is, I think our thinking has to change to a certain extent in terms of the business of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
How do we sell ourselves in terms of really understanding the reality that we're facing?
Okay.
And it's hard on everybody, but it's harder on women. I had a friend of mine one time, you know, and she was a great actress. She was on Broadway, and a friend of mine worked at Universal, and so I told him, I said, listen, she's coming to town. She's a brilliant actress, got great reviews.
Okay.
I want you to see her, you know. So he says that he saw her. I didn't hear from him for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I called him. I said, hey, man, what's up? She said, did you saw her? Yeah, man, I saw her, man, but here's the problem, man. I said, what? Hey, man, she's 34. I said, what do you mean? He looks at me and he says, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 for women, good.
Wow.
20, 21, 22, 23, good. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, good.
He's starting to
20, 29,
wow.
30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. And he said, I'll give you an example. He said, Harrison Ford can be in a movie, and he was in his late 60s at this time,
Mm-hmm.
and have a love interest of a female in her 30s. Okay?
You're right.
He said, name one woman that's a female lead that could have a male love interest in his 20s or 30s. Name one. Except for maybe Meryl Streep, but that's about it.
Well, I can only name one now that did it, but probably it wasn't when you had that conversation. And I think the only one, I think, was Angela Bassett doing, Stella Got Her Groove Back.
But I'm just saying.
You're correct. You're correct. It doesn't happen.
So I think that should change. And I just think that the industry has to ask itself some questions in terms of how it perceives beauty, how it perceives intellect and intelligence, how it perceives the value of people on screen. Because there's the sin of commission, where that's when I put you on screen and you're dancing, singing, or
Mm-hmm.
Rapping, or and entertaining me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sin of commission, or where you're not, but the sin of omission is whenever there's anybody brilliant or smart or talented or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you're not there.
Wow.
So the thing is, we have to address the sin of commission and omission. Because young children, in Dark Girls, as you saw in the beginning, this young girl, she was like 3 or 4 years old. She had a little chart in front of her with pictures of, different little dolls.
Right.
And so she was dark skinned. And the dolls were white, Asian, and Black, and Hispanic. And so the teachers say, what is a smart doll? She pointed to the white one.
Oh, yep.
What's the pretty doll? She pointed to the white one. What's the most talented doll? She pointed to the white one. She never once pointed to the doll that looked like her. Not once. Does that tell you something?
Yes. Because you know, as you get older and you look back, and as a kid, and I'm sure you've seen this in your industry, and what you're talking about, the programming, being programmed, because I remember growing up and you playing cowboys and Indians, you were programmed. You thought the Indians, the Native Americans, were the bad guys.
That's
And
right.
the cowboys were the good guys.
That's right.
But you begin to understand and read and study history, you find out that was not correct.
Right.
You know, so I appreciate your time for blessing us here. Interruption, giving us a lot to think about as different interviews I saw that you always do. You're always insightful. I have one last question before I let you go. Just a quick question, and that is, do the younger generation of actors or directors in film, do they seek out advice, nuggets from you, from the Cicely Tysons, you know, the ones that paved the way that came before them? Do you find that happens?
Very seldom.
That's a shame. You have a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, yourself and others. And I thank you for giving us that opportunity to kind of pick your brain on some issues. And once again, stay safe, stay blessed. And once again, I thank you for being that wonderful example of in the entertainment industry and as just a man. And once again, we thank you here in Interruptions.
God bless you, brother. Thanks. Thank you for your great show, and thank you for having me on with the great questions. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Take care, brother.